All right, we're going to continue now, and welcome to the stage, Larry Lepard.
Hey, good morning, Tim. How are you?
I'm doing well. How are you, sir?
I'm great, thank you. All good.
Can you tell us a little bit about your background, your journey to Bitcoin, and to the big print?
Thank you. Yeah, the book. Yeah, most people know my background. I'm an investment manager, 68 years old, been doing that my whole career. Evolved from doing technology investing into hard sound money investing when the GFC occurred, which at the time was gold because Bitcoin was just getting started. And then migrated into Bitcoin as I got more and more confident that it was going to technically be sound. Started in 2013, 14 with skepticism, but my confidence level grew. And of course, now I'm a full maxi. Still have the legacy gold fund. I'm responsible for the investors who put money in there. And I believe gold is going to work as well, just not as well as Bitcoin. The gold mining stocks are going to work, and they're working pretty well right now. So, I wrote a book called The Big Print. And I wrote it because I wanted to try and orange pill the damn world. I felt like the great books out there. Lynn's book's great. Safe's book's great. They tend to be a little more textbooky. I tried to write something that was easy for everybody to understand and maybe easier to read. And so, again, I want, every American or every citizen in the world to understand how important this change is and how we've got to return to sound money and how they can protect themselves if they, purchase sound money, which is Bitcoin. So that's kind of the quick background.
Awesome. What's your take on where we are in Bitcoin land? We have the ETFs. We have a lot of corporate adoption. We have nation states either mining or at least creating a ring fence of a reserve.
It's just incredible. I mean, if you asked us 2 years ago and you said all these things were going to happen, we're going to have a pro-Bitcoin administration, we're going to have a strategic reserve, we're going to have people in the White House talking about Bitcoin, the president's going to speak at a conference. I mean, it's unbelievable what's going on, and it's all positive, obviously, for Bitcoin. The treasury companies are a huge positive for Bitcoin. We really. I mean, I think Saylor at one of his speeches a year ago said something along the lines: we're crossing the tipping point. Where we're kind of at the 10%. It's going to be a gold rush here for the next 10 years as everybody comes to realize they need this asset, and that's really kind of what I see going on. I mean, I think that we've got a very, very bright few years ahead of us, and I think in terms of the 4-year cycle, we're not through with this one. I'm very confident we're going to hit 150 this year, and probably 200s, maybe 300s next year. Hard to tell where the top will be, and of course at that point people will be overextended. There'll be some leverage used, and maybe we'll have a correction. But it's extremely bullish what's going on, and if you can stomach the possible volatility in the future, you should be buying it like crazy right here, because I believe in the power law and other models. I think we'll break it to the upside eventually, but we're going to be at $1 million a coin in the early 30s in my view. So that makes it probably the most asymmetric thing out there with what I consider to be relatively low risk. So it's all good.
Any takeaways or themes that you maybe saw emerge from some of the conference and other meetings that you've been to this year? I feel like I saw you in Fort Lauderdale at the Mining Disrupt conference, and then, of course, you were in Vegas and saw you in Prague. So we've really been traveling around the world here.
Yeah, we have. I mean, the conferences are great. I mean, the Vegas conference was a little hectic and crowded. I was signing a lot of books. I didn't get to go to a lot of the sessions, but it was large. Prague was fantastic. That's a really well-run show. Highly recommend that to anybody. It's a beautiful city, and it's kind of the right scale. The Vegas scale is just so big. It's so noisy, especially with the politicians coming. I mean, you get locked out. And the morning when Vance was speaking, I stood in a crowd of people for an hour and a half, not able to move. So, but I think, the world is waking up to it, and the conferences show that. And, it's like I say, it's all good. I'm just incredibly bullish about what's going on. I think that, we're now at the stage where TradFi is actually being forced to reckon with this. I mean, they just can't ignore it any longer. I mean, when it keeps making new all-time highs. You know, I remember when it was at 15,000 and all my TradFi friends were like, see, we told you it's dead. I was like, no, it's not. This is an unbelievable buying opportunity. They didn't listen. You know, and I mean, when will they, you know, everyone wakes up at their own pace, right? I mean, you know, and sadly what will happen here, Tim, I can see it. I was talking to somebody about this yesterday, is, you know, we'll squirt up to 300 or 350 and then somebody will wake up and buy it. And then we'll have a 30 or 40% correction, which will take it down to 200, you know, and they'll think, oh my God, what have I done? And you know, it's a funny asset. You have to understand the nature of the volatility. You have to understand the implications of where it's going long term. And I think that's the hardest thing for TradFi to get their arms around, that you can actually have an asset that can go up forever and not be overvalued. I mean, in traditional TradFi, something goes up a lot, it tends to get outside of its metrics and measurements, and it becomes overvalued. I mean, just by its very nature. And so, you know, that's kind of a traditional way of looking at assets, and I get it. However, in this particular case, this is a new and different asset. It's something really unique that's never existed before, which is absolute digital scarcity. And as a result of that, it can go up forever. and most people just can't grok that, you know, and that's why, you know, Saylor says, hey, it's going up forever, Lauren. People think he's joking, but he's not. I mean, you know, people think he's nuts, but he's not. He's, you know, he's dead ass serious. I mean, you know, it is Manhattan real estate. There's only so much of it. It's the soundest money ever created, and it's a new and better form of money, and therefore there really is no top to the price. So it's hard for people to understand that. The biggest thing I used to be fighting, Tim, was, you know, in my libertarian group friends and everybody else, well, the government's going to kill this, right? They're going to regulate, they're going to tax it, they're going to shut it down. Look at Elizabeth Warren, blah, blah, blah. Well, then the ETF came out, and it's kind of like, well, that argument kind of fell away. Then the president endorsed it, that kind of fell away. Then the strategic Bitcoin reserve got talked about, that kind of fell away. Now the big argument is, well, I'm too late. You know, I can't, you bought it for 10 or 20 or 400 or whatever, you know, when I started. You know, I can't pay 120 for this. It's nuts, you know. And I'm like, well, yeah, you can, because if it's going to $1 million or 5 or 10, which it is over longer periods of time, you know, you need to buy it now. And the analogy I use often is, I say, you know, the fiat world, and the book talks about this, the fiat world, fiat itself is destined to fail. And if you kind of assume fiat currencies are kind of like the Titanic, and, you know, gold and Bitcoin are seats on a lifeboat outside of the Titanic because they're currencies that the government can't print. You know, yeah, I bought my seats cheaper. I mean, I was buying gold at 300, 500, 1,000, 800, you know, all these lower numbers. And, you know, I bought some Bitcoin at 400. But, you know, the seat's still available. And, you know, the seat's bid to you, 120. Do you want the seat? Do you want to stay on the Titanic? You know, pick one. I mean, you know, so I think it's hard, but it's hard. I get it. I get that it's hard for people. But with my clients, what I try and say to them is just get in there. Just you don't have to. Sure, it's volatile. I get it, you know, and get in there. And they say, how much should I put in? And what I always say is, well, you should put in what you know that if it goes down 50%, your initial reaction will be, I want to buy more, not, oh, I made a mistake and I'm going to sell it. And I think that's one thing sometimes Bitcoiners forget, is that we have to mention the people we're orange pilling. We've got to explain to them how this works and what's happened in the past, and that could happen again. Now, you know, going down 50% from 500 to 250. Well, okay, big deal. But, you know, if you bought it at 500, you might feel bad about it, right? So that's kind of what I see going on.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Can you walk us through the numbers when Saylor says 21% over 21 years, or I'm sorry, 21 million over the next 21 years, and someone, you know, may do very rough and maybe incorrect math of like, oh, so it's going up $1 million a year, but it doesn't necessarily mean we're going to be.
No. It's based on the ARR, the average rate of return per year, and that's been coming down over time. I mean, it was higher in the past because it was earlier in the adoption cycle. From what I've read and what I hear, I believe kind of the ARR now is somewhere in the mid 40s. I don't know, it could be higher, it could be lower, depends on what point you measure to and from, and that will come down over time. And I think, you know, Saylor projects it out in the future, it'll get closer to 20. But if you take that, you know, 40 some odd % rate today and you slowly shrink it over time and you let it compound for a bunch of years, I mean, that his big number is quite a ways out there. I want to say it's 2040 or maybe even a little later. So, you know, it's not overnight. And I think the power law, which there's a great chart in there that Fred Krueger did that I put in my book that talks about kind of the power law. It gives you some boundaries of, you know, and look, that it's not a perfect model, and it will be broken to the upside, but for now, it's all we have. And looking backwards, it's got a 90 some odd percent R squared correlation with what happened. And so, to me, that's as good a model as any. And there's an average value of Bitcoin as it grows over time, and then of course it swings around that. Sometimes it gets over exuberant, sometimes it gets too depressed. I mean, after Sam Bankman-Fried, it was way below the power law model, and so. The way I kind of look at this is I kind of look at it similar to, there's a site on Twitter. It's called the Meyer multiple, the Tip Meyer multiple, I think is the Twitter handle for it. And it kind of shows you the price of Bitcoin compared to the 200-day moving average. And if you look at it, through most of its life, it's been within kind of one standard deviation band of the 200-day moving average. The 200-day moving average now, I believe, is around 100K, somewhere plus or minus. And, and it hasn't spent a lot of time over 2x the moving average, but it's spent some time. I mean, in big runs, it'll go 3-4x the moving average. So what that tells you is that in this run, we could get to 300,000 or 400,000 a coin. But over 200,000 a coin, you're in rarefied air. The percentage of time it's been up there has been low. So, but as I said earlier, I think the power law is going to break to the upside, because at some point in time, what's going to happen is Gresham's law is going to kick in a massive way, and everyone's going to realize they're in a theater with a fire, and the fire is burning fiat, and they're going to want out, and they're going to do it all at once. And so it's going to be like Silicon Valley Bank. I mean, one day it was sound, then they sold some bonds, some people ran some numbers, everyone said, holy shit, this thing's not sound. They lost $42 billion of deposits in one day. And so if the government were to undertake policies, I mean, if, say a blue administration were to win, Stephanie Kelton were to be Treasury Secretary, they promised UBI to everything and everybody and massive debt forgiveness, and they're going to cover it with printed money. Well, Bitcoin would go through $2 million a coin, in months. So, I'm not saying any of that's going to happen, but the point I'm making is that the power law is kind of based on what I consider to be somewhat stable conditions. And at some point, this thing could become unstable. As you look, and my book talks about this a lot, as you look about how other economies unwound, whether it be Venezuela or Weimar Germany or Zimbabwe or, other hyperinflations, when a quorum of the people in a country come to the conclusion that they can never stop printing money and the currency is fucked, then they all dash to get out of it at once. And at that point in time, you've got real fear. And so people won't be saying, is this price too high? They'll just be saying, get me some, and that the same is true with gold. I mean, gold will go through 10,000. So, so that's kind of, now, is that going to happen anytime soon? Probably not. But is it a tail case out there? Absolutely. Especially depends on how crazy our government gets. I mean, they should be trying to balance the budget, but you can see they tried that, and, Doge didn't exactly work. Elon's gone, Vivek's gone, and the big beautiful bill passed, and the only two fiscal conservatives in Congress got lambasted by Trump. I mean, Massey and Rand Paul, and Bessent pivoted and said, okay, we got a lot of debt, but we're going to grow our way out of it. Well, okay, I know what that means. They're going to grow their way out of it by printing the money, and we're going to have inflation. So, I mean, it really is. I'm incredibly bulled up, Tim, in terms of where we are in this cycle right now. I mean, we're about to make a lot of money, and the world's about to understand what we all know, and that's really going to be pretty transformative, because it's still a small percentage of us that really understand this.
Can you talk a little bit about the process and the time it took to kind of write the book, and any advice that you might give to younger people or people of any age that are thinking about how they can maybe contribute to the Bitcoin?
Sure. Well, so in my case, what happened was I was, I guess I started, it took me about 6 months to write the book. And it started with some watching some political event or conversation on something on TV that my wife dragged me into. And they're all arguing about a bunch of stupid stuff. And I was just like, I was so frustrated. I was like, nobody's really talking about the primary issue that's going on in this fourth turning, which is the money is failing. And so, and I mean, obviously Safe talked about it, and Lynn's book is excellent and talked about it, but they're the kind of books that you give them away and people don't read them because they're pretty scholarly, and they're better than mine in terms of scholarship, but they're not easy to read. And so I thought to myself, God, somebody's got to explain this, and I understand it really well. Maybe I'll try and write a book about it. And so talk about, and bring in my personal stories and all that kind of stuff, and show some warts so that people realize that I'm real. And the thought pattern behind that was just people don't they don't read textbooks. They watch Real Housewives, which is stupid, but they want a human being behind it. They want a story behind it. So I kind of try to weave it all together in a format that somebody would get intrigued with. And the opening scene in the book is kind of shows a case where I took on some pretty powerful people and kind of got hammered for doing it, but I felt like it's important to do. And I hopefully what I try and do there is set the hook, like, holy shit, who's this guy all about? I got to read this, see what he has to say. The way I did it was I'm an early morning person, so I would get up at 4 or 5 in the morning and start writing. And then I go to workout. I come back from workout and I keep writing. And usually by about 2 o'clock I'd be shot. And then I would do my regular business and other stuff, and maybe take a nap, whatever I needed to do. But and I got more and more obsessed with it. At first I was like, well, I'm not sure if this is going to turn into anything. I'm not sure if it's good enough. I'm not sure I can really make it a book. But as time went by, I became obsessed with, like, yes, I've got to get this done. And I felt like there was kind of a higher power guiding me to do it. I mean, I really had all kinds of really serendipitous positive things happen. I mean, one of which was an editor showed up, a woman named Mel Schilling, showed up in my life and just kind of said, hey, I'm a Bitcoin person and I really believe what you're doing, and can I look at your book? And I looked at it and she made some comments. I was like, holy shit, the book's pretty well written, and honestly, I can't write that well. I mean, the ideas are mine, the message is mine, it's in my language, but she really cleaned it up a lot. So if you're going to write a book and try and get it published, I highly recommend getting a good editor, because no matter how brilliant you are, how good you are, other people can see different things that you can't see, and they can make it more explainable to folks. And there's a lot of I've always journaled, and there's a lot of argument for journaling. I mean, I think in general, just kind of writing down your thoughts is helpful. It kind of releases them and allows you to then come back and see what you were thinking at any given point in time. So then I thought about doing the publisher route, and one of the things that you learn when you look at this whole thing is that the publisher route is really quite complex. Takes a lot of time. They even want to have some control over what you say. And the minute I heard that, I was like, nope, not doing that. And so I started investigating self-publishing on Amazon, which is a tricky process, because there are all these hoops and Amazon that you've got to jump through. It's not simple, but once you master it, it's really, when the book showed up on my doorstep, hardcover and paperback, I was kind of amazed. It actually works. If you do all the right steps and you put it all together in the right format, guess what? You end up with a book. And so, that's kind of how it happened. And I wrote it between kind of May and December of last year. I finished it on the last day of December. We spent all of January laying it out and getting kind of final edit just to make it look good. And then it launched in early February. And right now I'm just under 40,000 books sold, very close to it. So,
wow, congratulations.
Yeah. Well, thank you. Some people say it's great. I don't know what great is. Never published a book before. I mean, I see these other people coming out with books and selling 100,000 in the first week. So, or millions of books a year. I've gotten kind of tight with, Robert Kiyosaki, the guy who wrote Rich Dad, is a really nice gentleman. He's 80 years old, ex-Marine. He read it, liked it, and he loved it. He said he loved it, and he, has been promoting it. Took me to a show where I promoted it, and so he's been helping me a great deal in terms of marketing of it. And it's amazing to me. This is an interesting fact. That Rich Dad book, which I read when I was much younger, is a great book, by the way. Most people should read it. He has sold 50 million copies of that book in 35 years. Isn't that something? That's
wow.
Yeah, it's stunning. So if this could do even a fraction as well as that, that'd be great. I mean, to me, my dream is that the message gets out there, because the reason for writing the book is I want to see my kids grow up in a better world. And I know that, the world is broken, but I also know I'm very optimistic and positive about where the world can and will go. And I just try to write this as an accelerant. Like, how do we get there faster? And if, books, I was talking to another potential editor woman who was looking at the book earlier on. And she said something to me that just got in my craw. That was just interesting. She said, Larry, books can change the world. And I was just like, holy shit, now I got to do it. And so, it's an immodest goal, but I would like to hope and dream and think that maybe this book could play some small role in changing the world.
What has the experience been like of signing books and interacting with people at these conferences?
It's fantastic. I mean,
like, is there a lot of signatures going on, right?
Yeah. So I try and dedicate each one, put their name in, put in the block height, put in the price of Bitcoin, write some words. I mean, people want me to say something special, I'll do it. I've had a lot of people DM me and I've sent them books and so forth. I mean, it's fantastic because Bitcoiners are fantastic, right? And so, there've been lines to get the books, but that's because, I want to have a minute or two to interact with everyone who buys a signed copy. And so I hear their story and how they got there and what they're thinking and, so on and so forth. It's been just fantastic. I can't, this community is just the greatest community. Bitcoiners are just great people in general. So, it's been fun. It's been tiring. I mean, at Las Vegas, I've got a picture of myself and Efrat at the end of Las Vegas. I look totally beat. I mean, I think I sold and signed 350 plus books in Las Vegas. It was 3 days straight of signing books, and I was friggin' wasted at the end of it. But you know what? I mean, that's, when you're trying to promote a book, that's what you got to do. And people say they want to buy a signed copy, and I'm like, yeah, okay, I'll do that. Right. So.
Absolutely. Where should people go to buy the book, and where can people interact with you?
Thank you. So most people know I'm on Twitter, just under @LawrenceLepard. There are a lot of fake news on Twitter too. So make sure there's a blue check and make sure there's 220K plus followers, or else it's not me. The fakes are terrible. I wish Elon would fix that. In terms of buying the book, I do not have a publisher yet. It's pretty edgy, and I'm not even sure I'm going to get a publisher. The Richard Warner interview with Tucker recently, he talked about how he could never get a publisher for Princess of the End because it was too edgy. So there's some chance I won't ever get a publisher, which is a bummer because publisher would get you into Ingram, and Ingram can get you into the airports, which I'd like to do. But it's on Amazon in all formats: hardcover, paperback, digital, and also audio, read by Walker. So and then I've been going around to shows. I went to, I'll be, in terms of new shows I'm going to, I'll be at Bitcoin Canada up in Montreal later this year. My wife and I just agreed I'm going to go to Plan B in Lugano. I'm not 100% sure I'll have books there. I got to figure out the logistics of that, but I'll definitely be there. And I will be at the New Orleans Gold Show in November. So, and if people want signed copies of the book, you can DM me, and if you're willing to, send me some sats or Venmo me the money or whatever. There's a little bit of a delay, but I tend to, get a signed copy and put it in the mail. So I'm following that. So that's kind of the best way to do it. And then of course I do a lot of pods like with you and others and so forth. So although I've been cutting back on that, and that's the other thing I would just say. If anybody's been trying to reach me, been DMing me, been emailing me, please understand it's gotten really, really nutty. I mean, 50 inquiries plus per day. And so if I'm not responding to you, it's not because I don't like you. It's not because I'm intentionally ignoring you. I mean, it used to be the case that I'd get 1 or 2 inquiries a day, I'd respond completely. I just can't keep up with the flow right now. And so please, anybody who's trying to reach me and I haven't been responsive, please don't take it personally.
That is, no, it's good to just let people know kind of as things progress, right? How busy it gets, and maybe it ebbs and flows. So
it does. I do the best. I mean, I do the best I can, and I do try to eventually get to everybody. But like I say, some stuff has fallen through the cracks, and I know it. And I apologize if you feel like I've insulted you or I've ignored you. I apologize in advance. So.
Larry, thank you for your time. Thanks for...
thank you, Tim. I really enjoy what you've been doing, and you're a great addition to the space. And, I hope we can do some pods in the future.
Absolutely. Larry Lepard, thank you so much. We'll talk to you later.
Okay, good to see you, Tim. Bye-bye.
Thanks. Bitcoin custody is evolving, and OnRamp leads this change with multi-institution custody, eliminating single points of failure. Instead of one institution or complex private keys, OnRamp secures your Bitcoin in a segregated, cold storage, multi-sig vault backed by 3 independent, institutional-grade custodians. No single custodian can move funds by themselves, providing an unprecedented level of security that traditional custody solutions simply can't match. Protected by a $100 million Lloyd's of London insurance policy, all transactions are fully auditable on-chain
never rehypothecated, and executed only at your explicit direction. This means complete transparency and control over your assets at all times. Beyond custody, OnRamp delivers comprehensive Bitcoin financial services, including lending, trading, inheritance planning, IRAs, and more. OnRamp functions as your private banking partner, coordinating key holder activity, removing technical burdens, and providing a personalized, trust-minimized experience tailored to your specific wealth preservation goals. Whether you're new to Bitcoin or an experienced holder, OnRamp's approach helps secure generational wealth with unmatched security and peace of mind. Visit onrampbitcoin.com today to learn more, sign up, or book a free consultation with their team of Bitcoin custody experts. Hey guys, today's episode is brought to you by StampSeed. If you're in cold storage, you know how important it is to protect your seed phrase. That's why I recommend you head over to stampseed.com and check it out for yourself. This seed phrase storage device is one solid piece of titanium. There are no loose pieces, and you can hammer your seed phrase in letter by letter. When you go to stampseed.com, use promo code TIM15 for a 15% discount across the website. That's TIM15. Join us at the Wynn in Las Vegas, February 23rd through the 26th, 2026 for Bitcoin for Corporations. Use code KOTZ when you grab your tickets at strategy.com, and we'll see you there. This episode is brought to you by Arch Lending, the premier provider of crypto-backed loans designed for both individual and institutional investors. At Arch, your digital assets work for you without selling them. Arch offers flexible loan options tailored to your needs. Backed by industry leaders like Morgan Creek Digital, Castle Island Ventures, and Galaxy Ventures, Arch Lending is setting a new standard in crypto-backed lending. Are you ready to unlock the potential of your crypto assets? Visit archlending.com to learn more and configure your loan today. Are you looking for comprehensive analytics on corporate Bitcoin adoption? Strategy Tracker delivers real-time insights into how companies are executing their Bitcoin strategies completely free. Monitor NAV premiums, cost basis performance, and track how corporate Bitcoin treasuries perform against the market. Upgrade to Premium for just $3.99 a month and unlock exclusive benefits like detailed market rankings, real-time trading volume analysis, and advanced performance metrics for corporations embracing Bitcoin. Apply code KOTZ at checkout for 100% off your first month of Premium. Strategy Tracker is your essential tool for measuring the effectiveness of corporate Bitcoin strategies. Visit strategytracker.com and gain the analytical edge in understanding the Bitcoin treasury phenomenon.